Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Weekly. And in this video, we'll be building a form which will fill out credit card information. Let's go ahead and check it out. So credit card holder name, I'm going to go ahead and type in my name and the credit card number. It always changes to Adam for some reason. Here we go. Credit card number, whatever the credit card number is. Don't use this number. This is my real credit card number. Don't use that. All right, so here we go. Whatever. And that's another thing, that when you tap on the CCV code, then it rotates because CCV code is on the back of the credit card. So this is exactly what we'll be building. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. So we're going to start from the very beginning. You can see that I have a content view over here. And it really doesn't have anything apart from a simple text view, which displays hello world. So the first thing we want to do is to create the front side of the card, right? The credit card, the front view. Now, it's a good idea to create that into a separate file and call it credit card front view or card front view. But I want to share the code with you, obviously. So I'm just going to go ahead and implement everything in the same file. It just makes it easier for me to share code with you. So card front view, we're going to create a view. There we go. And there are multiple different ways of creating these things. So it's like, oh, why are you using an X stack? Why are you not using a Z stack or a V stack? Well, you can. I mean, it's completely perfectly fine. It's in programming, there's always like a infinite number of possibilities that you can do stuff. So here it is. I have a VStack credit card front view, and let's go ahead and update this part to credit card front view also in the content view, so I can see that what it actually looks like. And obviously it's not going to look much right now because we still are trying to figure out. Okay. The other thing that I want to do is to add a gradient. All right. So let's go ahead and add a gradient to it. Apart from the gradient, we are also going to set the foreground color and the frame and everything. So now you can see that we have the foreground color, line number 15. We have a frame width and the height, which is 350 by 250, and a background. And the background we're using is using the linear gradient, which is going to start from purple and end on blue. The starting point is top leading, so basically something over here, and end point is bottom trailing, so it should be right there. It's going to move in that direction, and you can actually see, right? This is like a purple, and then it turns into blue. Okay, and then we are clipping shape just to make sure that we have these nice rounded edges. Great. So this part looks pretty good. The next part we want to do is to add some sort of a logo for the credit card. So I'm going to go ahead and add some sort of a check mark also that is approved. I'm going to use the image. And the good thing is that when you are creating these kind of images, you can always use San Francisco symbols. And one of those symbols, and you can use any one of those symbols, one of those symbols is checkmark.circle.fill. And you can see the symbol is actually appearing now. Now I do want the symbol, which is great, but I don't really want it in the middle. I want it on the top left corner. So first, I'm going to go ahead and give it a bit of a padding. And in the VStack, I can use a spacer to kind of push everything up. Okay, great. And since we're using X stack, I can again use a spacer to make it on the left side. Okay, so that's where I want the actual, check mark to appear. The next thing that I want to do is to add the Visa text. All right. Now, some of you have mentioned that, hey, right now this card will always say Visa. What about if we want to say MasterCard or, some American, American Express or things like that? I'm not going to be covering that part in this video, but you can research on it that all of these cards like Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, they all can distinguish by the starting of their numbers. So if you have like 5454, that might be like a MasterCard, If it starts with a 4, then it might be a Visa and so on. But right now, we're just creating the interface, so we're just going to use Visa over here. Okay, so the text that I want to use over here will be monospaced, and we have to give it certain size. So I'm just going to give it like an 18 size font. And I want it to be italic also, so I can use the italic view modifier. And let's go ahead and add a little bit of more padding to it. Great, okay, looking good. All right, now the next thing that we want to do is we want to show our, let's say, the name part of it. Like you have to say the name of the credit card holder, the credit card number, obviously, right? So I'm just going to get a placeholder over here for now and add a credit card number. So 4242, 4242, 4242, and you can add some credit card number. All right. Again, the credit card number is actually really important so that people can see it clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and add a different font to it so it's nice and visible. Okay. Next thing we want to do is to add the credit card holder name and the expiration date. Now, don't worry, we are going to make this part dynamic, and the holder name and expiration date. It's always a good idea to start slow and build up on things. So this part, the number obviously will be based on the input received from the user. Let's go ahead and add an H stack. And in the H stack, we want to add a credit card holder name, as well as obviously the name of the credit card holder, but also the text that credit card holder will say. So I'm going to add a V stack also inside this, and I'm going to say alignment and leading, so everything is like left aligned. And now I can add a text which will say card holder, but you can add any text you want. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the opacity to 0.5. So it's a little bit different. We can also have a font size over here. You can use any font size. I'm just going to go ahead and use 14, but you can try out different sizes. And finally, we will also display the name of the person. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and type my name. There we go, looking good. And again, I'm going to go ahead and add spacer so that we can have like nice space between them. Now, when I do add spacer over here, we can add a bit of a padding on the left side. So let's go and add padding to the overall H stack. And now it's looking much better. On the right-hand side, on this side, basically, this part, we would like to display the expiration date. So we can use the same exact process over here. So let's go ahead and kind of like copy this because it's pretty much the same thing. Instead of the credit card holder name, we will be saying expires. All right. And instead of Mohammad Azam, we will say over here, whatever, whenever it expires. So 2025 or something. And that's it. That's the front part of our application. So this is how it's looking like. So it looks pretty good right now, right? The next part that we want to do is how to fill out the information. Like right now, we don't really have a form to fill out, like an entry form. So it will be a good idea to add some sort of a form over here so that we can fill it out. And as soon as we fill out, it's going to go ahead and display the information right on the credit card number and the holder name and also expires. Now, before we do that, let's go ahead and take a small break and thank our sponsors. This video is sponsored by azamsharp.school, which is one of the largest schools for iOS development, and it has a catalog of 17 plus courses, 96 plus hours. Actually, by the time you'll be watching this video in the future, it will be more than 100 hours of videos. And one of the great things about Azam Sharp School on Teachable is that I do offer annual as well as monthly membership, and you can see the pricing over here. And you can also start a free trial, right? If you just want to check out, just start a free trial, 7-day trial for the membership, and it will only cost like $25 a month, or annual membership costs $249 a year. And check out all these courses that will be part of the membership. And I keep on adding new stuff. MV pattern, test-driven development, reactive programming, Swift data, full stack iOS development reality kit fundamentals, you are not going to get any of those courses anywhere. These are the courses only hosted on azamsharp.teachable.com, and I'm the only one creating these kind of courses. So this is one of the best resources out there. If you're an iOS developer, check it out. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get back to the video. All right, welcome back. So what we want to do now is to create a form so that people can type in their information. And before I do that, it would be a good idea to wrap all of this for time being into a VStack and kind of like push everything up, like using a spacer. We can just push everything up, and I can also give some sort of a navigation title. Well, let's say checkout or something. All right, there we go. Okay. And the reason that I did that is that I want to add also the form to fill out. And now we have a bit more space to fill out the form. So for form, I'm going to create a separate view. And once again, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm using the same exact file, but you should always be creating these different files so that your code is easier to manage. But the only reason that I'm doing that is it will be easier to share in a gist instead of creating repositories all the time. Struct, and we're going to create a checkout form view, which is a view. We're going to go ahead and create a body. There we go. Now in the body, we will have a form, just a form element over here, or the form view, which is a SwiftUI view. And this will put information, like we will have text boxes for credit card holder name, credit card number, expiration date, and a CCV code. Now there are like 4 or 5 different things that we need to put, right? So I can create a 4 or 5 different state variables over here, which will have the credit card name, credit card number, or maybe a better approach would be to just go ahead and create a struct to represent all of these states. So I can go ahead and say credit card info. And in that particular credit card info, which is simply a struct of value type, I can create these different properties to represent a credit card information that we'll be using. All right. So we have now this checkout form view. That's great. Now I can go ahead and create my text boxes or text field. Now, instead of creating a state over here, which will be credit card info equals to, it should be like var, I think, right? Var and credit card info, instead of state, which is only available to the checkout view form, I'm going to go ahead and use a binding. And the reason that I'm using a binding, you will see later, is once we update this credit card info, we also want the information to be visible to the content view, but also on the back of the card also. All right, so you'll see in a moment that why we are doing this. So I've replaced this with a binding, and now I can go ahead and create the form. So let me go ahead and copy some parts of it. This shouldn't really be any complicated. We're just creating a text field with a couple of different titles, credit holder's name, and whenever we type in the text field, it is going to send the information to card holder name, card number, expiration date, and so on. And we can also obviously have the text field for the CCV code. There we go. Let's go ahead and display the checkout form. So checkout form view, there we go. Okay, let's see what's going on. Oh, private, it shouldn't be private. So I've changed that, it's not a private anymore. Now, in order for the checkout form to work, we must pass in the credit card info. And that's the reason that I'm using a binding, because the content view can now hold the credit card info and pass the credit card info as a binding, so that whenever the checkout form changes the credit card info, the content view can get updated, and maybe it can even pass in information to someone else. All right. Okay, so there you have it. We have our credit card info. Great. Credit card number, everything looks pretty good. Let's see if we can actually type in there. Sometime it doesn't work when you actually type. Okay, it's working right now. It's working. Great. So what we want to do now is we have the checkout form. Whenever we type something in the checkout form, all of these fields are getting updated because we are using binding, as you can see right there. Everywhere we're using binding. So as soon as we type something in the text field, the credit card holder name, the card number, expiration date, the CCV code, everything is getting updated. And whenever it is getting updated, what I want to do is pass that credit card info to the card front view so that the card front view can also update. This means the card front view will be dependent on the credit card info, but not as a binding because the credit card front view is not really changing anything for the credit card info. It's just displaying it. It's kind of like a read-only kind of thing. So let's go to the front view and make a dependency. So in order for the card front view to work, you must pass in the credit card info right there. Now, since we have updated the card front view to add a dependency on the credit card info, we also must update the calling part of it and simply pass in the credit card info. And one of the things, again, to remember over here is that since we are using the credit front or card front view, the card front view is not really accepting any binding. So you can see the change over here. The checkout form view, we're passing the $sign because we are passing the binding. But the card front view, we're not really passing the binding. We're just passing the struct or the object itself, which is going to be, assigned. So let's go back over here. And now we can start replacing these things, right? So instead of the credit card number over here, we can go ahead and try to say something, let's say credit card info dot card number. And we can try to check it out. Like if I go over here in the card number and if I add something, you can see it's appearing. Now, one of the things you may have noticed is whenever I type something, the whole card kind of slides, not slides down, but whenever it adds that particular text, all the elements are moving down. All right. So now there are many different ways of fixing it. One of the ways is to simply check if the credit card number is empty. Then we can go ahead and give it a little bit more space, or else just use the credit card info dot card number. And there are many different ways of fixing it. I mean, this is not the only solution. I mean, you can use like a minimum height, you can use like many aspect ratio or aspect fit or things like that. But now let's go ahead and type something in the credit card number, and you can see that it's much better UI now. Okay, so we're done with that part. Let's change the card holder name, which is right now is Mohammad Azam, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to credit card info dot card holder name. And we can use the same exact approach over here also. Like if it's empty, then go ahead and use kind of like an empty space so that it does occupy some space. And if it's not, then just go ahead and use credit card holder name. For the expiration, we're going to do the same exact thing. Again, credit card info dot and expiration date. If it is empty, then we're just going to take a little bit of space, or else and expiration date. Okay, great. So we got a couple of these things set up correctly now. Let's go ahead and fill out the information. So I'm going to first start with my name. And again, it doesn't like Azam, it always changes it to Adam. And here we go. I can go ahead and enter 4242, some sort of a credit card number. Now, all of those things like formatting the number or validating, this is, you have to do it on your own. I'm not going to be involved in checking like, oh, you have to have like 16 digits. So those validation you can add yourself. And then we can go ahead and say 04, 25. So everything looks like it's working fine. Apart from the CCV code, right? I mean, if you go ahead and tap on the CCV, if that is in focus, it doesn't really do anything. And what we really want to do, as you have seen in the video, is we want the whole card to flip and show the back side. That's what we want to do. So the first thing we should do probably is to create the back side of the card, right? So let's go ahead and create the back side. So this is the front, and over here I'm just going to create the back side of the card. We'll call it credit or card back view. Again, there are many different ways of doing that. You can use higher order components or higher order views also, but I want to keep it like simple. So I'm just going to write some of the code. We may have to copy some of the code from, from our front view for this to work. All right. So let's start with the VStack. And I also wanted to see what I'm doing right now. So let's go over here and add a card back view. So I can at least see what's going on. Because right now I can't really see. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the same thing, like the foreground style, the frame, the background, the clip shape, all of those things. I'm just going to add that right over here. So I will have a little bit of idea how it will look like. It's not going to look like this on when we run the application because we don't show the front and the back at the same time. But it's good that we can at least see it right now. So we can definitely have a more visual appearance. On the top, we will have some sort of a bar or some sort of a line that goes. So let's go ahead and add that. Now you can already see the line is kind of like in the middle. You want it on the top, so we can add a spacer to push everything on the top. There we go, it looks fine. Okay. And the next part is the CCV code. All right, so let's go ahead and use text. And CCV code, whatever your CCV code is, let's say 999. But we want it again to appear a different way or a different place. So with like a white background. So if you want the white background, we're just going to go ahead and give it a little bit more style. There we go. Still, it's not really at the correct place, I guess, right? I mean, so I can go ahead and wrap this text in a H stack. And over here, let's add a spacer. All right. Now, everything will be inverted, by the way, right? So what you see right now, it might be a little bit different when it actually, what is rendered. You will see in a moment. And we will also try to add some sort of a padding. Okay. And over here, we can give a little bit more space. So I can go and add it something like this. And over here, we can pass in the credit card info dot CCV code, right? But credit card info is not available over in this particular view. This means that we need to pass it. So let's go ahead and add a dependency, just like the dependency we added for the card front view. All right, looking good. And now we can go back to the back over here, credit card info. Okay, good. And the problem is that it's not really scrollable, so it will be very hard for me to see what the CCV code is. But at this point, I think we can kind of remove the credit card back view. There we go. Okay. So that part is done. I think the credit card back view looks fine. Now the next part that we want to do is, how about the flip? Like when I tap or click or CCV code is focused, which is right now, this front view should flip and show us the back view. So how do we do that? All right. So in this case, what we can do is if we go back to our form right here, on the form itself, we can create a focus state. And it will be a private, and we can say is CCV focused, which is simply a Boolean value. And for the text field, we can add the modifier for the CCV text field, and we can add this is CCV focused. So whenever the CCV field will be focused, this is CCV focus will become true. And when it does become true, the on change event we can add, which is listening to the is CCV focused, and whenever it becomes true, we're just going to fire this function. And what should we do this on the function? Well, we will fire a closure telling you that CCV or somebody has tapped on CCV. So we will say on CCV tapped, which is simply a closure. It doesn't really return anything. So whenever somebody or someone focus CCV, this on change gets fired. And over here, then we can fire on CCV tapped. Or actually, you should say on CCV focused, right? I mean, that should be a little bit more, much better. On CCV focused. That's a much better name for that particular function because we are focusing on it. Now the checkout form view is now complaining because the checkout form view is saying that, hey, you need to pass in something else over here also, which is on CCV focused. And it's true. So let's go ahead and pass that on CCV focused. And now we can do something over here. All right. So one of the things that we can do is we can try to have a state where we can say if it's flipped or not. So I'm going to add a local state for the content view, which is a Boolean value. And whenever somebody flips it, we can say flip.toggle. And we also need to add some sort of a degrees. Like if you want to flip and perform the rotation effect, then we will also add degrees. So initially the degrees will be like 0. But if we want to rotate it, so I'm just going to say degrees plus equals to 180. All right, so we're just going to add 180 to it, so it's going to be rotating. But then now the question becomes like, well, how do we actually rotate? So right now we have everything inside the VStack, and although we can use this VStack, but I would like to kind of like wrap everything inside another VStack over here, and we will find out over here that where do we have to finish this VStack. Probably right here is fine. Okay. I think we don't need a spacer at this point. Okay. So we have the VStack. If it is not flipped, then show the credit card front view. Else, if it's flipped, then show the credit card back view, where you have to pass in the credit card info. And how do we show that? Like, how will that work? Well, that is where you have to use the rotation 3D effect and pass in the angle and the axis. So the angle in this case will be in degrees, and good thing that we already have the degrees in hand, so we can pass that up. And now the axis, because you want to rotate it on the x-axis or the y-axis or the z-axis. Y-axis is perfectly fine, all right? So, but you can play around with it if you want like a different kind of a rotation on different axes. You can put x to be 1 and or z to be 1 and so on. Okay, so time to check it out now. Well, it did rotate, but it didn't really did it in an animation kind of thing, right? So something is definitely missing. You can see that over here, we are adding 180 and we are performing this, but it's a good idea to just wrap this with animation so we can actually see it animated instead of all of a sudden it just appears. Oh yeah, there we go. right? There we go. Okay, so once we're on the back, what if we type something? Oh no, when you type something, it actually displays this as inverted. So we need to fix that too, right? So how do we fix that part? Well, we can actually rotate that part also. So let me actually go to the credit card back view. Let's see where the back view is. There we go, back view. And in the back view, we have a text that is displaying all of these things. So right over here, we can just rotate the text again so that it will appear correctly. So what we did is that we're rotating on the same axis, which is, y-axis, and rotating again 180 degrees. So it will be like before. There we go. And now if I say, perfect. So now it actually appearing correctly. And now I can go ahead and fill out this information. Credit card number, 42424242, and some sort of expiration date over here. So whatever the expiration date you want to give. And if I focus the CCV code, it kind of goes over here. I can add a different number. I go focus, lose the focus, and it just goes over there. All right. So there you have it. We have created a credit card filling application. It has a rotation effect. It looks amazing also. I mean, it's a very nice UI, I think. So hopefully you have enjoyed it. And once again, check out my Teachable website. You can get access to 17 plus courses, because I'm uploading more courses right now, and it will be 100 plus hours. And I've also added trials. So hopefully you will enjoy all of these courses and the future courses that I'll be building in 2024 and so on. Thank you so much.